Now, as much as we want to prevent injuries from our game, it's going to happen from time to time. What we do when injuries happen can sometimes be the difference between minor, permanent, or even death. One of those being concussion. I have Doug to talk to me about that more. What is concussion, Doug?
Basically, Rose, concussion is a shaking of the brain.
All right, Doug, how can a concussion happen?
A concussion can happen by either a direct force, such as being hit in the head, causing a shaking of the brain, or by an indirect force where you land on the ground and the force is transmitted to the brain. You don't have to lose consciousness to be concussed.
So what happens to the brain?
The brain is shaken. If we take a look in here, we'll see that it's like a big blob of jelly, and if we hit it, you can see it moving.
Yeah.
So this bounces in between the skull and can cause bruising and in some cases bleeding.
So you give us an insight on second impact syndrome?
Second impact syndrome is when a player takes to the field with symptoms of concussion that are still remaining and they take a second hit to the head. You're 30% more likely to get a concussion while you're still currently having symptoms of a concussion.
So if they get hit on the same spot, what happens there?
What you can risk is death. Players can die from a concussion on the field. I've had one happen to me a few years ago. He took to the field, he was tackled, had all the safety precautions, and he died on the field.
All right, Doug, how do we identify concussion?
Concussions or suspected concussions is what we're trying to find. Give a lot of symptoms, and these are mostly outlined in the ACC sideline concussion checklist. They have all the symptoms on the inside, so you're looking for any memory lapses, any confusion, any disorientation. There's a series of questions that can be given to ask these people, and if they're suspected or they miss one question, they're ruled out of the game. We take them from the field.
Okay, to prevent a concussion?
To date, there is no real you can prevent total concussions. You can reduce the severity of them by wearing mouth guards. In a recent survey of New Zealand Rugby League players, it was identified that 71% of players that were concussed did not wear mouth guards. People that have got mouth guards are 7 times less likely to suffer a concussion than those without.
Does NZRL have a policy?
Yes, it does. The NZRL policy is online and is downloadable. There is a short summary sheet as well. It identifies the return to play protocols, the symptoms to look for, and a reporting policy.
So for a player that's had concussion, what's the procedures they take before they return back to playing?
First of all, they should have a period of no less than 2 to 3 days of no activity. So that's no reading, no writing, no PlayStation games, no computer, no TV, no cell phone. Don't drive for 24 hours. Just total and utter cerebral rest. Then they go into a graduated return to play process. That can take anything up to 21 days for those over the age of 17. Between the ages of 10 to 16, it can take up to 28 days. Those under 10, it can take up to 3 months. They're also not allowed to take the field in any full contact or match activities unless they've been medically cleared by a health practitioner.
Identifying concussion. Use a sideline concussion check to identify and test for suspected concussion. Symptoms and questions are within this resource. If a player has a suspected concussion, remove them from play, and if in any doubt, sit them out. The NZRL policy for a suspected concussion is 16 years and under 28 days stand down. The player must then be cleared by a doctor to play. 17 years or older is 21 days stand down. The player must then be cleared by a doctor to play. Secondary concussion and second impact syndrome can happen if a player returns to play before their brain has healed from earlier damage. Secondary concussion and second impact syndrome can lead to permanent injury or even death. Duty of care of the coach. If a suspected concussion occurs and you knowingly return the player to the field or keep them on the field, you may be personally responsible for any liability if the player is seriously hurt as a result of your actions.